I stood perfectly still as red wine dripped down my back while a 12-year-old boy laughed in my face. His parents joined in, thinking my billions made me untouchable, unbreakable. They were wrong. By morning, I'd ended their $540 million contract. Some people never learn until it costs them everything. Before I tell you this story, I need you to understand something. I don't make decisions lightly, especially ones that affect hundreds of lives. But that night at the Grand Pavilion Hotel, I learned everything I needed to know about Michael and Jasmine Hendricks in less than 5 minutes. Stay with me until the end, because this isn't just about revenge. It's about the moment I chose my values over $500 million, and why I'd make the same choice again tomorrow. Let me take you back to that September evening when everything changed. My name is Catherine Anderson, and I've built my empire on one simple principle: character matters more than profit. People think that's naive. They whisper behind my back that I'm too soft for business, that my morals will be my downfall. After 42 years in this industry, I'm still here, and most of those whisperers aren't. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The charity gala that night was for children's literacy programs, a cause close to my heart. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment in South Boston with my mother, who worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. She cleaned offices from midnight to dawn, waited tables during lunch rush, and somehow still found time to read to me every single night. Books were our escape, our window to a world beyond poverty and struggle. So yes, I attend these literacy galas and I write the checks, because I remember what it feels like to be that kid who needs an escape. I prefer to arrive at these events alone. My head of security thinks I'm crazy, but I've learned more about people in casual observation than I ever could in a boardroom. When people don't know I'm watching, they show me who they really are. That's worth more than any background check. The Grand Pavilion was everything you'd expect from a $5,000 a plate charity event. Chandeliers that cost more than college educations, champagne flowing like water, and enough designer gowns to fund a small country. I wore simple silver, no flashy jewelry, hair pulled back. I learned a long time ago that real power doesn't need to announce itself. I'd been observing the crowd for about an hour when I noticed them. The Hendricks family, Michael, Jasmine, and their son Ethan. I knew Michael's company, of course. TechFlow Solutions had been my primary supplier for 6 months, operating under a 3-year contract worth $540 million. On paper, everything looked perfect. Their products were solid, delivery was consistent, and the numbers worked. I'd been planning to expand our partnership, possibly triple the contract value. That's why I was there that night, actually. I wanted to see Michael and his family in an unguarded setting to confirm what I suspected about his character. Within 30 minutes, I had my answer. It just wasn't the answer I'd hoped for. I watched Ethan push past an elderly woman without apologizing, snatch canapes from a waiter's tray before they were offered, and make loud complaints about how lame the event was. He was 12 years old, dressed in a suit that probably cost $2,000, with hair gelled back like a miniature Wall Street broker. But it wasn't his appearance that bothered me. It was his eyes, cold, entitled, mean. Michael and Jasmine hovered nearby, working the room with practiced efficiency. I watched Jasmine laugh too loudly at jokes that weren't funny, touch people's arms a beat too long, name drop with the subtlety of a foghorn. Michael glad-handed his way through clusters of executives, his voice carrying across the ballroom as he talked about his company's unprecedented growth and revolutionary partnership with Anderson Industries. Every time Ethan did something rude, his parents either ignored it or chuckled indulgently. When he made a snide comment about another guest's appearance, Michael ruffled his hair with pride. When he deliberately bumped into a waiter, causing a tray to wobble dangerously, Jasmine just smiled and said something about boys being boys. I've raised 3 children of my own, and I've seen thousands of kids through my charitable work. I know the difference between a child acting out and a child who's been taught that cruelty is acceptable. Ethan Hendricks had been taught. Around 9 o'clock, I made my way to the dessert table. I was tired, honestly. These events drain me more than board meetings. I was reaching for a small pastry, already planning my exit strategy, when I felt someone approach behind me. Then I felt it. Cold liquid splashing down my back, soaking through my silver dress, running down my spine in rivulets. Red wine, an entire glass of it, poured deliberately, maliciously, down the back of my dress. The ballroom went silent. You know that feeling when 200 people stop breathing at the exact same moment. The air pressure changes. Time seems to slow down. I stood completely still. The wine dripped off my elbows onto the white marble floor, spreading in dark red pools at my feet. I'd been in worse situations than this. I'd faced hostile takeovers, vicious competitors, and personal tragedies that made a stained dress seem trivial. But something about this moment crystallized everything I'd been observing all evening. Behind me, a young voice cut through the silence, dripping with mockery. "Oops, guess you're wearing red now. It's actually an improvement, don't you think? That boring silver was putting everyone to sleep anyway." Ethan Hendricks, 12 years old, laughing at me like I was the punchline to a joke only he understood. I turned slowly, wine still dripping from my dress, and looked at him. Really looked at him. He stood there with the empty wine glass in his hand, grinning like he'd just won a prize. His eyes danced with malicious delight. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't even a prank. This was cruelty, pure and calculated, from someone who'd learned that humiliating others was entertainment. Then I heard more laughter, adult laughter. Michael Hendricks rushed over, but not with apologies. He put his hand on his son's shoulder with unmistakable pride and started laughing too. Actually laughing. His wife Jasmine followed, her hand over her mouth, but her eyes were crinkled with amusement. "Oh my God, Ethan!" Jasmine giggled. "You're terrible." Michael shook his head with exaggerated disbelief, but he was grinning. "Catherine, I'm so sorry, but you have to admit, that's kind of funny. Kids, you know, they have no filter." I stood there, wine-soaked and silent, watching this family laugh at my expense in front of 200 witnesses. Michael didn't even try to discipline his son. Jasmine didn't offer any real apology. They just kept laughing, like this was the most hilarious thing they'd ever seen. "Come on, Catherine," Michael continued, his tone shifting to something almost condescending. "It's just a dress, right? You can afford another one. Hell, you can probably buy the entire boutique." He laughed again, louder this time, encouraging others to join in. Some people did. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd, the kind of laughter that happens when people don't know what else to do, when they're following the lead of someone they think has power. Jasmine stepped closer, still smiling. "Seriously, don't be upset. Ethan's just being a kid. It's actually kind of cute when you think about it. Shows he's comfortable around successful people." She said this like it was a compliment, like their son's cruelty was somehow proof of his confidence. I finally spoke. My voice was quiet, but in that silent ballroom, everyone heard me. "Is that what you call it? Cute?" Michael's smile faltered for just a second. "Well, I mean, it's not a big deal, is it? No harm done. We're all friends here." "Are we?" I asked. The laughter died completely. Michael and Jasmine exchanged glances, suddenly uncertain. Ethan, however, still looked pleased with himself, like he'd gotten away with something brilliant. I looked at this boy, this child who'd been taught that other people's dignity was a toy for his amusement. Then I looked at his parents, who'd not only allowed this behavior, but celebrated it. And in that moment, I made my decision. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I simply said, "Excuse me," and walked out of the ballroom with wine still dripping from my dress. Behind me, I heard Michael call out, "Catherine, wait!" "Come on, don't be so sensitive." I didn't turn around. I walked past the whispers, past the stares, past the shocked faces of people who couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. My driver met me at the entrance, took one look at my dress, and wisely said nothing as he opened the car door. During the 40-minute drive home, I didn't think about the dress or the humiliation or even the laughter. I thought about my mother. I thought about the nights she came home exhausted from cleaning offices, her hands raw from chemicals, her back aching from scrubbing floors. I remembered the times other kids made fun of my donated clothes, my free lunch status, my mother's job. I remembered the teachers who looked through me because I was poor, the parents who didn't want their children playing with that kind of kid. My mother taught me something precious during those years. She'd sit me down at our tiny kitchen table, hold my hands in her work-worn ones, and say, "Catherine, baby, listen to me. Character isn't what you show people when they're watching. It's what you do when you think nobody important is looking. And remember this, every single person is important. Every single person is important." Michael and Jasmine Hendricks had shown me exactly who they were that night. They'd shown me that they thought my money made me immune to hurt, that my position made me someone they could humiliate for entertainment. They'd shown me that they were raising a child who believed cruelty was acceptable as long as you were laughing, and they'd made one crucial, fatal mistake. They'd assumed I needed them more than they needed me. By the time I reached home, I'd made my decision. I sent a single email to my head of legal operations with very specific instructions. Then I took a long shower, washed the wine out of my hair, and went to bed. The next morning at 6 a.m., Michael Hendricks received an email. The subject line read, "Contract termination, Anderson Industries, effective immediately." I can only imagine his face when he opened it. The email was professional, direct, and final. TechFlow Solutions' contract with Anderson Industries was terminated, effective immediately. They had 30 days to cease all operations and remove their equipment from our facilities. No explanation was required by law, and none was given. I imagine he thought it was a mistake at first. Maybe he even laughed, thinking someone in my company had overreacted and I'd fix it once I calmed down. By lunchtime, when his calls to my office went unreturned and his emails bounced back from my executive team, reality probably started setting in. By evening, when his lawyers confirmed that the termination was legal, binding, and irreversible, he must have finally understood. I wasn't joking. I wasn't being emotional. I was being decisive. Over the next week, I received dozens of messages from Michael and Jasmine. They progressed through predictable stages. First came confusion, then anger, then bargaining, and finally desperation. Michael's first email was defensive. "This is a completely disproportionate response to a childish prank. I expected more professionalism from someone in your position." Then came Jasmine's message. "We apologize if Ethan upset you, but ending a $540 million contract over a stained dress seems vindictive and petty. Think about all the jobs you're affecting." When those didn't work, they tried different tactics. Michael sent a formal letter citing possible legal action for breach of contract without cause. My lawyers sent back a very detailed response explaining exactly how many clauses in our agreement allowed for immediate termination at my discretion. The messages grew more desperate. Jasmine called my office repeatedly, leaving voicemails that started with indignation and ended with barely concealed panic. "You're destroying our lives over nothing. We have employees, families depending on us. How can you be so cruel?" The irony of that word, cruel, wasn't lost on me, but I never responded, not once. Because here's what Michael and Jasmine didn't understand. This wasn't about the dress. It was never about the dress. This was about watching two parents laugh while their son deliberately humiliated another human being. This was about the casual cruelty they'd not only tolerated but encouraged. This was about the values they were instilling in their child, that money equals immunity, that power means you can treat people however you want, that dignity is negotiable. I'd built my company on different principles. Every person who works for me, from the executive suite to the mailroom, knows they'll be treated with respect. I've fired vice presidents for belittling their assistants. I've ended partnerships with companies that exploit workers. I've walked away from billions because the money wasn't worth compromising my values. So when I saw Michael and Jasmine Hendricks laugh at their son's cruelty, when I heard them dismiss it as cute and funny, I knew I couldn't do business with them, because eventually that lack of character shows up in business decisions. It shows up in how they treat their employees when nobody's watching. It shows up in contract negotiations, in quality control, in customer service. Character always shows up. Within a month, news of the terminated contract spread through the industry. These things always do. People talk. And when they talk about a $540 million contract getting cancelled, they want to know why. The story of what happened at the gala circulated quickly. Some people sided with the Hendricks family. They called me vindictive, oversensitive, emotional. They said I'd let personal feelings interfere with business judgment. A few executives even published opinion pieces about the dangers of mixing personal values with corporate decisions. Parents thanked me for holding people accountable. People who'd experienced similar humiliation told me their stories. Young professionals wrote to say I'd inspired them to stand up for their own values. TechFlow Solutions didn't survive the loss. They'd expanded aggressively based on our contract, taking out loans, hiring hundreds of employees, leasing expensive equipment and warehouse space. When the primary revenue source disappeared, everything collapsed like a house of cards. 6 months later, Michael and Jasmine were forced to declare bankruptcy. They lost their company, their home, their savings. Most of their employees found work elsewhere, though many blamed the Hendricks family for the chaos. I don't take pleasure in their financial ruin. Contrary to what some people think, I'm not vindictive. I'm simply unwilling to build my legacy on partnerships with people who lack basic decency. I replaced TechFlow Solutions with a smaller, family-owned company. The owners are a husband and wife team who started their business in their garage 15 years ago. When I met them, they treated my assistant with the same courtesy they showed me. They asked thoughtful questions about my vision instead of boasting about their capabilities. And when their teenage daughter stopped by the office during our meeting, I watched them interact with her with patience and genuine affection. We've now been working together for 2 years. The partnership is stronger than the one I had with TechFlow Solutions, and I've increased their contract to $800 million. Good business and good character can coexist. As for Ethan Hendricks, I think about him sometimes. He's 14 now, and I wonder if anyone's teaching him different lessons. I wonder if losing everything helped his parents understand that actions have consequences, that cruelty has costs, that human dignity matters more than profit margins. My own children are grown now, successful in their own right, and they know this story. They know that their mother walked away from $500 million because she refused to do business with people who thought humiliation was entertainment. They know that I valued integrity over income, character over contracts. People often ask me if I regret my decision. They point out how much money was involved, how many jobs were affected, how dramatically one evening changed multiple lives. They ask if a stained dress was really worth all that. And my answer is always the same. It was never about the dress. It was about a 12-year-old boy who learned that cruelty was acceptable. It was about parents who not only allowed that cruelty, but celebrated it. It was about a family who believed that wealth and success gave them permission to treat others as entertainment. I grew up poor, remember? I grew up being that person others felt entitled to mock. I built this company so I'd never have to feel powerless again. And more importantly, so I could create a world where character matters more than bank accounts. The wine came out of my dress, by the way. Dry cleaning did its job. But some stains can't be cleaned. The stain on Michael and Jasmine Hendricks' reputation, the stain on their son's character, the stain on their business legacy. Those stains are permanent. And that's the real cost of the $540 million mistake. It wasn't the contract they lost, it was the trust, the integrity, the human decency they never had in the first place. So that's my story. The night a 12-year-old poured wine on my dress and his parents laughed, and the morning I ended their $540 million contract. Some people still think I overreacted, others understand completely. But here's what matters to me. I can look at myself in the mirror every single day, knowing I stayed true to my values, even when it cost me. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own values and the cost of compromise, do me a favor. Like this video and subscribe to this channel. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between profit and principles? What would you have done in my position? I genuinely love to hear your perspective. Remember, character isn't what you display when everyone's watching. It's what you do when you think nobody important is looking. And here's the secret they don't teach you in business school. Everyone is important. Every single person deserves dignity and respect, regardless of their bank account or their job title. That's the lesson Michael and Jasmine Hendricks learned the hard way. And that's the lesson I hope Ethan learns before it's too late. Thanks for listening to my story. I'll see you in the next one.